Midnight is coming, the ticking of tocks, propelling us forward through lifetimes of clocks. Yet to strike midnight. Or has it just come? Uncertainty present.
So we're thinking print this email.
Yeah.
And then let's see if what it'll do.
Yeah, I think it will be good.
I mean, I don't know if my technology is working for that. But let's see.
Your technology is working for you.
Maybe. It says it's warming up. Yeah. All right, so they want me to read. This is one of the things from your manifesto.
Yeah.
Make your own metrics. Invent your own rules, your own tools, your own platforms, your own algorithms. And if you can't, at least keep in mind that the most valuable things can never be counted. My response to that is, you don't have to invent your own rules, your own tools, and your own platforms, and your own algorithms. You don't have to. You just have to choose them consciously. I would say pick your own rules. You know, because what if your own tools, what if there's a great tool that someone else has? I'll just borrow their tool. You know, but I want to borrow it, right? I'm not going to accept the tools that are given to me without analyzing them, without understanding their affordances and their biases. You know, but I don't have to, you know, make my own computer, make my own TV.
Right.
But I can look at it and say, oh, this is not, I got a problem with this. Like I got a problem with that Macintosh, right? Because where are they getting the rare earth metals? What are they doing? What's the...
But you're still using.
I'm still using. I'm making a compromise, right?
Yeah.
So I could stop, you know, and that's part of it is, you know, I can drop out. I mean, I do think that too many of us spend too much time, energy, and technology on trying to scale whatever we do where we don't need to. You know, 99% of us don't need to be tweeting what we're doing. We could just do it. You know, it's harder if the internet doesn't know.
But you need the applause. No?
People think they do. But the problem is the applause that you get on these services, it doesn't even fill your heart. It's an addiction. It never fills the empty spot in your soul. So you go back and you go back and you go back. If it filled it, you would need to go back, right?
Yeah.
It's like you do cocaine, you go back.
I never try, but I imagine.
You would. The people go back and back and back because it doesn't really fill anything. You do DMT, you're like, okay, maybe next year. that was good. I'm glad I did that once in this lifetime. You know, I remember Rajneesh, the cult leader guy, but he had some good things. He had this giant cult, you know, I think it was in Oregon somewhere. And there was a lot of sex that went on there. And then someone asked him about sex. And he said, like, well, if you do sex right, you only need to do it once a year. But I understand what he was saying. It's like if you have that big an orgasm, you're done. You're cooked. You know, so it's that way. With if you teach kids how to read in your neighborhood, if you take care of old people where you live and get them baths and bring them food, the feedback that you get live in the moment from that person it means more to your body and psychology than a million likes on your Instagram post.
Yeah. This is interesting.
But yeah, but I agree. You know, the I'm more important than that you invent your own rules or that you invent your own tools. I'm more interested in that you own your tools. You know, it's this is the Marxist in me coming out. But I like when the worker owns the means of production. It's the way we think about our value. You know, it's funny because I'm reading Marx largely because my daughter has to do Marx for her 11th grade class. So I reread Marx, and he's so concerned with how people used to work like in a family, and you're working because you're thinking about how am I contributing to what other people need, and you get your sense of meaning and purpose is, am I fulfilling other people's needs? And the change that he's so upset about is when we're thinking in terms of how does my work, what's the exchange value of my work? What can I get for it? How much money can I get for this? You know, or I'm going to make a chair. I want to make a beautiful chair for someone else to sit in. And now they're not thinking that. I'm going to make a chair.
How much money
how can I get off it? How much can I make? How much profit can I get off this chair?
Yeah.
And they're two very different approaches. You know, one is removed. And that, you know, when the internet started, it started as a way of restoring that family connection. I see you, share with you, you share with me. It's all shareware, open source, free.
This is how Facebook started. Don't you think?
In a way, but it was conceived by someone with a social disorder, so it had some problems to start.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you could say he was looking for. Was he looking for a way to make money? I think so.
I don't think in the beginning. Again,
Then
I don't know
why would he
him.
steal the idea? Why would he steal it from the roommates rather than just do it with them? Because he wanted it for him. You know, and even getting credit for things and all that, that's still part of this same urge, you know, to rise above everyone else, to be alone rather than together. And that's the other problem is, that's what you know, Timothy Leary used to tell me about this technology that I didn't believe, but that so many of the people using it and making it, they want to create a bubble around themselves. They want to recreate the womb. You know, they
And everybody used togetherness, but it's not anymore together. Only through internet.
Yeah, and that's not. You know, I'm trying to spend less and less time on it rather than more. Should we look at this other one?
Yes, please.
Intro, meta, multi, micro, macro, pre, post, poly, hybrid. Give it a name if you must, but play with borders enough to enjoy something different while still feeling yourself. Well, I mean, I think you're talking about intimacy, you know, about social, intellectual, spiritual, moral, and technological intimacy. Playing with borders means you lose the sense of what's yours and what's mine. You know, there's a word called, what's it called? Proprioception. Proprioception is the word that means how do you understand where your body ends and where something else begins. And sometimes you can do weird little tricks where you take all your fingers and you move them around and then look, and then someone points and you have to figure out which finger they're pointing at, that you can't, or they touch it and it's like, oh. Or you look at someone else's hand and you think it's your hand if it's in the right place. Like I put my hand back here and you put your arm through there, then you can touch it and I'll almost feel it. You know, that's proprioception. It's where all sort of optical illusions and different things you can go in make you feel like something else, like your body's in a different thing. And the internet and video games and 3D and virtual reality were always about, for me, about challenging where do I end and other people begin. Even social media to some extent and the early internet things were like, oh wow, are you here or am I there? Where are we when we're talking on the phone? What is that? You know, when I close my eyes and I'm in an old phone with a wire, you know, I'm talking to my lover on the phone. Where are we? You know, where's our body? So the net was so much about breaking down the boundaries of location and self and body and you and me. And, you know, it felt like the internet was very much like rave. You know, rave dancing, that as a great metaphor. Everybody taking ecstasy and dancing in this one, we're part of an organism together. You know, the early internet people thought that's what would go on. Contrast is the solution. Apparently, it's natural to avoid conflict. It's also wrong. What we need is better, smarter, kinder conflict that puts our differences to work to engineer models that suit everybody. I would agree that we are, in some sense, we're still at the end of the television media environment.
And still everybody is paying more to television than online.
Yeah. But television was about the global big blue marble. Television was globalist. And the globalist sensibility is, you know, Rodney King said it. Why can't we all get along? Television is Oprah Winfrey. And come on, everybody. We could just have one big global hug. And, you know, and the problem is people start to think that getting along is the prerequisite to negotiating a solution. That I have to like you, you have to like me for us to engage. No, it's about, we have to learn to feel responsible for people that we hate. Responsibility is different. I'm responsible for you, you're responsible for me. We disagree about everything, we don't like each other, but we have to be able to negotiate for, you know, peaceful coexistence. And we've been so distracted by this false premise that we have to like each other that we can't do anything anymore. It is about difference. And if you look at the healthy societies of the past, you know, Istanbul and Cairo and Lebanon, you know, historically, back in the day, even in India, there were just, all the religions were there. And they would have these meetings where they would argue about like whose God is right and whose ethical system works.
Without killing each other.
Without killing each other, because it was
love of arguments today doesn't exist anymore.
No, and partly, and it's funny, we're either afraid to have conflict or we're entrenched in the conflict, but neither one is actually, you know, to your other rule, neither one is crossing the border.
Or we have too many things to put on the table to test as guns and militaries, and we need to show off and to need to use it in a way. So that's why we really...
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it that way. The market value, the exchange value, back to Marx, the exchange value of your weapons goes up if you're living in a violent world. I'm not hopeful about the future of this civilization. You know, it's funny, people were, on one of the panels or something, I was even in the unfinished thing, I think it was, I was talking about, you know, that's okay, civilizations go. And someone said, oh, well, you know, people always think it's the end of civilization. You can always look through history and people are always saying, oh no. And why would you think now would be any different? You know, so why should it be now? And I said, oh, why do you think now is any different? Civilizations always end. You know, the weird thing, the anomaly, would be if this thing continued on. They never continue on, particularly when they're.
But what do you think
like
is the journey or the path of what's going on now with the social media, with the education related with the young generation that are totally addicted to what's going on there. And as we talked earlier about the likes and the appreciation and so on, and actually also where the focus goes always is the negative comment, not the positivity in all this. And I'm very interested because for us, this aspect of education or exposure